Hello and welcome. My name's Chris Can with Australia's Mining Monthly and Mining Magazine, and we're in Singapore at the Future of Mining Asia. With me I have Ryan Fong, Jaya, who is with IFISHDECO. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. Indonesian focused group. I wanted to get your take on private participation and how that is dovetailing into or helping to drive energy transition in Indonesia.
Thank you, Chris, for having me, and also the Future of Mining for having me at this amazing event in Singapore. It's a spectacular event, been meeting so many great people, and so happy to be here with you today. So actually, the way that we kind of see private sector participation in Indonesia, this year we had an election at the start of the year in February, where the quick count was announced. So the most important thing in mining is actually the transition of government, because anything revolving around mining in Indonesia revolves around government policy. So one of the things that we kind of see as a private sector, the most important is a smooth government transition, and in terms of policy, the policy transition is pretty much aligned with the previous administration, which is the Pak Joko Widodo's presidential cabinet, and also his presidential term is ending in October. So the transition is actually towards his defense minister, Pak Prabowo, which pretty much he's going to do a continuation of policy from President Joko Widodo. So for us as the private sector, we see this as bullish, very bullish, because Pak Jokowi's tenure as president in Indonesia actually revolves around downstreaming of minerals in Indonesia. So for example, he did the export ban for nickel. And the reason why he did that is because one of the easiest policies that doesn't cost a lot for a country to monetize their natural resources, putting in an export ban, and then getting foreign investors to invest, and that creates value-added products. So the way that we see it as a private sector company, this is a true testament towards long-term planning of the government policy to continue towards the downstreaming of minerals. So it started with nickel, and then it moved to bauxite, and going forward it's going to other industries like tin, and also Freeport also just completed their refinery. After many years of being an investor in Indonesia, now that they've finally built a gold refinery that's refining copper and also gold, we're seeing more other investments in this sector, such as now the government made a new policy around critical minerals. So there's 47 critical minerals that they have outlined, and also 22 strategic minerals, and that revolves around rare earths. And besides this as well, we also see opportunities in silica, which is pretty much used for glass manufacturing, also for solar panels. So that's another sector that we kind of see. So as a private sector company, I think this is one of the interesting opportunities. And actually the president-elect, Pak Prabowo Subianto, he actually made a white paper that was released sometime in November before the election. And one of the big opportunities that he highlights is actually the opportunity in the energy sector revolving around minerals and coal, right? And that's about 430 billion US dollar worth of opportunities there, whether it's from the upstream side or the downstream side. So I think as a private sector national company, we're very excited for the continuation of policy.
So you see the policy is very supportive. I asked that, Ryan, in the context of a lot of policy in Indonesia has been supportive of mining, with an energy transition context coming into frame. Is it actually evolving, or is it just more of the same?
It's actually evolving over time. So the way that what the government is positioning is actually the first wave of investment was through the export ban in nickel, where they realized that they had such a large reserve in the country, and they were exporting a lot of their raw material for the last 20-30 years to all over the world. They've taken these policies from some countries that they've studied, and they realized that the cheapest way for them to build up a value-added industry is actually through implementation of an export ban. Because if they didn't do that, then they would have to invest heavily into research, and then put a lot of capital, and then find the right private sector partners. So with this actually domestic companies didn't have the technology. They didn't know how to, build refineries. They didn't know how to operate it. So, and obviously foreign companies were much more happier to just purchase raw material from us and process it back home. But with this policy, it actually, I guess, when you cut off the supply, now they have to come to Indonesia to make that investment. And I think there's a couple of benefits as well. I mean, the Chinese are the first investors that came in. They were the technology leader in a lot of these mineral processing sectors. From my understanding, they are probably 10 years ahead of most countries in this sector. So they took an early, bet in Indonesia, and they built out their ecosystem and infrastructure. And it's pretty much been quite successful. I guess because their factory now is closer to the source, they have some efficiency. A lot of their investments are already paid back. But the Indonesian government does want more diversity in terms of investors. And that's where the opportunity lies, because that's where, I guess Western counterparts or the Japanese or the Koreans, in the last couple of years, they start to see actually the government's been stable, the investments are actually returning and generating very profitably for early investors that made early bets. So now they're trying to figure out how to enter into this landscape. And I guess one of the ways is partnering with a local company in Indonesia, and that's kind of what the Chinese actually did.
Of course. Ryan, you started off saying some very kind things about the future of mining Asia, our first event. Thank you for that. You mentioned meeting people, networking. What else are you hoping to get out of the event over the next 2 days?
So from this event, actually, I see a lot of policy makers here from governments, not just only from Indonesia, but around the region, and I think that's a very insightful thing for me, because we get to understand and learn the different policies from, neighboring countries, such as earlier today, there was a panel from Malaysia and also Australia. So we get to see the different aspect and the different dynamic on what each government official is kind of looking at, where the opportunities lie, and how, competitive can we be, right? In terms of, as a private sector, we can't really implement policy, but we can advise the government, this is what our neighboring countries are doing. How do you, make investment in Indonesia a destination where it's a little bit more attractive? And as a private sector company, we also get to see where the opportunities are in those countries. And I think at the end of the day, I think in today's world, it's not about competition, it's all about collaboration. So I think this is the interesting part, where Future of Mining is really bringing different stakeholders to kind of have a discussion and a debate, and at the same time being able to network with different people from different parts of the region to kind of collaborate.
Ryan, thanks for taking the time to speak to us.